Most people don't realize it, but the constant noise in your mind is keeping you stuck. Thoughts racing, worries stacking, endless distractions. This is why you feel restless, why you struggle to focus, why you can't fully enjoy the present. But what if you could shut it off? Not just for a moment, but completely. Imagine mastering the ability to quiet your mind at will, to silence the endless chatter and step into a state of pure clarity and control. This isn't about meditation. It's not about forced relaxation. And it's definitely not about sitting in a dark room humming mantras. This is about unlocking a skill that the world's most powerful minds have used for centuries, a skill that allows you to think sharper, act with confidence, and stay unshaken no matter what's happening around you. By the end of this video, you'll have the exact blueprint to take control of your inner silence once and for all. But you have to watch until the end, because if you miss even one piece of this, it won't work. Stay with me, and let's begin. Imagine waking up in the morning, but instead of feeling rested and clear-headed, your mind is already racing. Thoughts about unfinished tasks, past conversations, future worries, and random noise flood in before you even open your eyes. You pick up your phone, scroll mindlessly, check notifications, and without even realizing it, your day starts in chaos. Sound familiar? This is the reality for most people. The mind never stops. It jumps from one thought to the next, hijacking your attention, flooding you with distractions, and making even simple moments feel overwhelming. It's why you struggle to focus, why you feel exhausted even when you're doing nothing, why you can't shake that constant feeling of unease. It's not because you're lazy, unmotivated, or incapable. It's because your mind is running on autopilot, stuck in a cycle of noise that you've been conditioned to accept as normal. But here's something no one ever told you. The reason you can't find inner peace isn't because life is stressful, because work is demanding, or because the world is chaotic. The real problem isn't out there, it's inside. The endless noise in your head is not random, it's programmed. From the moment you were born, your mind has been trained to seek stimulation, to react to every thought, to fill every second with mental activity. Society tells you that silence is empty, that it's boring, that it should be avoided. So you fill the gaps with music, social media, conversations, anything to keep your mind busy. But in doing that, you lose something powerful, the ability to control your own thoughts. Think about it. How many times have you tried to sit quietly just for a moment, only to feel an unbearable urge to check your phone, turn on the TV, or distract yourself with anything? That discomfort isn't random. Your brain has been wired to fear silence because silence forces you to face yourself. It brings up emotions, thoughts, and realizations you've been avoiding. This is why most people can't sit still, why they feel restless when there's nothing to do, why they fill every moment with noise and distractions. And here's the scary part. This constant noise isn't just making you anxious. It's shaping your entire life. Studies show that the average person has tens of thousands of thoughts per day, and most of them are the same ones they had yesterday. That means if your mind is filled with stress, self-doubt, and negativity today, it will be tomorrow too. Your thoughts dictate your emotions dictate your actions, and your actions create your reality. So if you don't learn to control your inner silence, your life will always feel like it's running away from you. But there's good news. This is not permanent. You are not stuck. In fact, the ability to shut off the noise, to take full control of your mind, and to enter a state of deep, effortless silence is already within you. It's not something you have to learn. It's something you have to remember. The greatest thinkers, leaders, and creators throughout history all understood this secret. They knew that true power comes from mastering the mind, from being able to silence the unnecessary and focus entirely on what matters. And that's exactly what you're going to learn today. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear, step-by-step method to turn off the mental noise on command, to control your thoughts instead of letting them control you. But you need to stay until the end, because if you miss even one step, the whole system falls apart. This isn't just about feeling calmer or reducing stress. This is about rewiring your brain to work for you instead of against you. It's about unlocking a level of clarity, focus, and control that most people will never experience. Right now, your mind is running you. By the end of this, that will change. The choice is simple. Continue letting the noise dictate your life, or take back control and experience what true mental freedom feels like. Let's begin. Think about the last time you felt completely present, fully aware, with no mental distractions pulling you in different directions. It probably wasn't recent. For most people, moments of true clarity are rare, fleeting, and almost accidental. The rest of the time, their minds are a battlefield of thoughts, worries, and endless internal chatter. But what if that wasn't normal? What if the ability to control your inner silence wasn't just possible but natural? Right now, your mind operates like an overworked engine, constantly running, burning energy on thoughts that don't serve you, keeping you stuck in cycles of stress and distraction. But the moment you learn how to control the silence within you, everything changes. Your focus sharpens, your emotions stabilize, and your decision-making becomes effortless. It's the difference between walking through life blindfolded and finally being able to see clearly. This isn't just about feeling more peaceful. Controlling your inner silence is the key to mastering every part of your life. It's what separates those who drift aimlessly, reacting to every thought and emotion, from those who move with purpose and intention. When you master silence, you no longer waste energy on unnecessary noise. You stop overthinking situations that don't matter. You stop getting trapped in self-doubt, in frustration, in mental loops that drain your energy. You learn to think clearly, act decisively, and stay in control no matter what's happening around you. Most people assume that the ability to silence the mind is something reserved for monks, yogis, or people who meditate for hours every day. But that's a lie. The truth is, your mind already knows how to be silent. It's just been trained to be noisy. Every time you scroll through social media, jump from one notification to the next, or fill every free moment with distractions, you reinforce the habit of mental noise. Your brain adapts, learns that silence is uncomfortable, and conditions itself to crave constant input. But just like it learned that pattern, it can unlearn it. And that's exactly what you're going to do. Neuroscience has proven that your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your habits and thoughts. This means that the way your mind operates right now is not permanent. If your default state is filled with stress, overthinking, and distraction, that's not because it has to be. It's because it's been wired that way. The moment you start training it differently, everything shifts. Your mind becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Instead of pulling you in 1,000 directions, it works for you, helping you focus, stay calm, and navigate life with confidence. Think about some of the most successful, influential, and powerful individuals in history. They weren't controlled by their thoughts. They had the ability to step back, process information clearly, and act from a place of deep awareness. Nikola Tesla spoke about the importance of solitude in his creative process. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, practiced deep internal reflection to stay grounded amidst chaos. Steve Jobs would take long, silent walks to organize his thoughts and make major decisions. These people didn't rely on constant stimulation to function. They mastered their inner silence, and that gave them an edge over everyone else. And that's the key. When you control your inner silence, you gain an advantage most people will never have. You stop being reactive. You stop wasting energy on thoughts that don't matter. You move through life with an unshakable presence that others can feel. People listen when you speak because your words come from a place of clarity, not scattered thoughts. You become the type of person who doesn't get overwhelmed, who doesn't panic under pressure, who doesn't second-guess every decision. But here's what most people get wrong. They think silence is something they have to force, something they have to struggle for. That's why they fail. True silence isn't about fighting thoughts or suppressing them. It's about shifting how you relate to them, learning to let them pass without getting caught up in them. Once you understand that, controlling your inner silence becomes effortless. And that's exactly what you're going to learn today. By the end of this video, you'll have a practical, step-by-step method to switch off mental noise whenever you need to. Not by meditating for hours or escaping to a retreat in the mountains, but by rewiring your brain to work differently. Once you apply this, you'll start noticing the shift immediately. The same thoughts that used to overwhelm you will lose their power. The noise that used to cloud your mind will fade. You'll move through life with a sense of clarity and control that changes everything. But you need to stay until the end, because if you miss even one part, the whole system won't work. What you're about to learn is not theory. It's a practical skill, one that will transform the way you experience reality. Let's begin. Right now, your mind is running on autopilot. Thoughts appear, and before you even realize it, you're caught up in them. Worries about the future, regrets from the past, random distractions pulling your attention in different directions. It feels like something you have no control over, like an endless stream that never stops. But that's just because no one ever taught you how to take control. The truth is, mastering inner silence is not about suppressing thoughts, forcing your mind to be quiet, or meditating for hours. It's about learning how to shift your focus, how to break free from the automatic patterns that keep you trapped in mental noise. And once you understand how to do that, you'll be able to enter a state of deep silence on command. The first step is interrupting the cycle. Most people don't realize it, but the reason their minds are so noisy is because they've trained them to be. Every time you reach for your phone, the second you feel bored, every time you react to a notification, every time you let a thought pull you into a spiral, you're reinforcing the habit of mental chaos. But the moment you learn how to break that pattern, everything shifts. There's a simple but powerful exercise that will show you exactly what this means. Close your eyes for a few seconds and just observe your thoughts. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to control them. Just notice them. Now, ask yourself, what thought is going to come next, and wait. The moment you do this, something interesting happens. The thoughts slow down. The stream of noise that seemed uncontrollable pauses, even if just for a moment. That's because you've shifted from being caught up in your thoughts to observing them. And that small shift is the key to mastering inner silence. Once you understand that, the next step is rewiring your brain. The reason thoughts feel automatic is because your mind has been conditioned to work that way. But neuroscience has proven that the brain is constantly changing, constantly creating new pathways based on what you focus on. If you've spent years reacting to every thought, getting caught up in mental noise, your brain has been wired for that. But the good news is, you can rewire it for silence. The way to do that is through something called the reset point. This is a technique that allows you to train your mind to return to silence effortlessly, no matter what's happening around you. And it works by using a simple shift in attention. Instead of fighting thoughts, instead of trying to suppress them, you give your mind something else to focus on. A single point of awareness that becomes your mental reset button. This can be anything, as long as it's consistent. Some people use their breath, feeling the air moving in and out of their nose. Others use a sound, a soft hum, or the ticking of a clock. The key is to pick something neutral, something that doesn't trigger more thoughts. And then, every time you notice your mind wandering, every time you feel yourself getting pulled into noise, you bring your focus back to that reset point. At first, it might feel like you have to do it constantly, but over time your brain adapts. It learns that silence is the default state, and just like a muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. The final step is embodiment. Most people think of inner silence as something that happens only when they sit still eyes closed, disconnected from the world. But true silence isn't about isolation. It's about learning how to bring that same stillness into everything you do. Imagine walking through a crowded street, people talking, cars honking, movement everywhere, but inside you feel completely calm, completely unaffected. That's what happens when you master this. You stop reacting. You stop getting pulled into distractions. Your mind becomes like the eye of a storm, still, focused, in control, no matter what's happening around you. And here's the most important part. This isn't something that takes years to develop. You don't need to go on retreats or dedicate hours every day to practicing. The moment you start applying this, you'll feel the difference. The same situations that used to stress you out will no longer have the same effect. The same thoughts that used to overwhelm you will start to lose their power. And the more you practice, the more effortless it becomes. By the end of this, you won't just understand how to silence your mind. You'll have the ability to do it whenever you want. And once you have that ability, everything else in life becomes easier. Decisions become clearer. Focus becomes effortless. Stress loses its grip on you. But you need to stay until the end, because if you miss even one step, the entire system falls apart. Let's move forward. Your brain has been conditioned to crave noise. Every notification, every sudden thought, every new piece of information triggers a tiny rush of dopamine, keeping your mind in a constant state of stimulation. But what no one tells you is that this overstimulation is costing you more than just your attention. It's keeping you trapped in cycles of stress, overthinking, and mental exhaustion. The real reason silence feels uncomfortable isn't because it's unnatural, it's because your brain has been trained to avoid it. But here's the truth. Your mind isn't designed to function in a constant state of noise. In fact, neuroscience has proven that the brain works better when it has moments of stillness. Studies show that when the mind is quiet, something incredible happens. Instead of shutting down, the brain actually becomes more active, but in a completely different way. Instead of processing external noise, it starts organizing, repairing, and strengthening itself. It forms new neural connections, integrates past experiences, and enhances memory. This is why some of the greatest breakthroughs, ideas, and insights happen in moments of quiet reflection. It's why you get your best ideas in the shower, why solutions appear when you least expect them, why the most successful minds in history have always prioritized solitude. There's a specific part of the brain responsible for this process. It's called the default mode network, and it's activated when you're not focused on the outside world. This is the system that kicks in when you let your mind wander, when you're lost in thought, when you're simply sitting in silence. And the more time you spend in this state, the better your brain functions. Creativity increases, memory strengthens, and stress levels drop. But the problem is, most people never allow themselves to enter this state. Their minds are always occupied, always stimulated, always reacting. And because of that, they never experience the full potential of what their brains are capable of. But that's just the beginning. Silence doesn't just improve cognitive function, it also has a direct impact on your emotions. When your brain is constantly processing external noise, it stays in a state of heightened alertness. Stress hormones remain elevated, heart rate stays high, and your nervous system never fully relaxes. This is why people feel constantly drained, even when they're not doing anything physically demanding. Their minds are burning energy non-stop, caught in loops of thought, worry, and overstimulation. But when you introduce silence, even for a few moments, everything changes. Studies have shown that just a few minutes of silence can lower cortisol levels, reduce blood pressure, and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for deep relaxation and recovery. This is why people who regularly practice silence report feeling more calm, more in control, and more emotionally stable. They're not getting overwhelmed by every little stressor. They're not reacting to every negative thought. Their nervous systems aren't constantly on edge. Instead, they move through life with a sense of balance, clarity, and focus that most people never experience. And the best part? This isn't something that takes months or years to achieve. Your brain is designed to respond to silence immediately. The moment you give it a break from constant stimulation, it starts repairing itself. It starts resetting. And the more you train it, the easier it becomes. But here's where it gets really interesting. Silence doesn't just heal the brain, it also enhances perception. When your mind is noisy, when it's filled with constant chatter, you miss things. Your attention is scattered, your awareness is limited, and you overlook details that could change everything. But when you enter a state of silence, your brain sharpens. It starts picking up on subtleties, on connections, on opportunities that were always there, but that you were too distracted to see. This is why people who master silence seem more intuitive, more insightful, more aware. They're not clouded by mental noise. They're able to see reality as it is, without distortion, without distraction. And this is exactly why learning to control inner silence is one of the most powerful things you can do. It's not just about feeling more relaxed. It's about unlocking a completely different level of mental performance. When your mind is quiet, you think clearer, you act faster, and you make better decisions. You're no longer controlled by impulse, by stress, by external noise pulling you in different directions. You become the one in control. And this is not just theory. It's science. It's how your brain actually works. The moment you start introducing silence into your daily life, even in small doses, you'll start to feel the effects. The constant tension will begin to fade. Your thoughts will slow down. Your focus will sharpen. And you'll realize something that changes everything. Silence is not empty. It's full of answers. But knowing this is not enough. You have to experience it, and that's exactly what you're going to learn next. A step-by-step process to take full control of your mind and enter a state of deep inner silence anytime you choose. Let's move forward. Most people think they want peace of mind, but the moment they're left alone with their thoughts, something strange happens. Instead of feeling calm, they feel restless. Instead of enjoying the quiet, they reach for their phones, turn on the TV, or start scrolling mindlessly. They don't even realize they're doing it. The discomfort kicks in almost instantly, and without thinking, they escape back into noise. This isn't random. The truth is, silence forces you to confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: yourself. The moment the distractions are gone, the unprocessed emotions, the fears, the unresolved thoughts all start to surface. And for many, that's terrifying. This is why people surround themselves with constant stimulation, why they fill every moment with background noise, why they struggle to just sit still and do nothing. They've trained themselves to run from silence because silence reveals what they don't want to face. Think about the last time you tried to be completely still. No music, no screens, no conversations, just you and your mind. How long did it take before you felt an urge to do something? A few minutes, a few seconds. That discomfort isn't a sign that silence is bad for you. It's a sign that your mind is carrying more weight than you realize. It's a sign that there are things you've buried so deep that you don't even know they're there, until the noise fades and they start to surface. This is why most people avoid silence, even without realizing it. It's why they keep themselves busy with things that don't matter, why they distract themselves every chance they get. But the irony is, the more you run from silence, the more control it has over you. The things you avoid don't disappear. They sit in the background, shaping your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. They influence your decisions, your habits, the way you see yourself and the world around you. And because you never face them, they never lose their power. But here's the truth. Silence is not the enemy. The discomfort you feel isn't coming from silence itself. It's coming from the things you haven't faced. And the moment you stop running, the moment you choose to sit with that discomfort instead of escaping it, everything starts to change. Instead of being something to fear, silence becomes your greatest tool. It becomes the space where you process emotions, where you clear out mental clutter, where you reset your mind instead of letting it control you. The greatest thinkers, creators, and leaders throughout history all understood this. They didn't run from silence. They embraced it. They used it to sharpen their minds, to strengthen their focus, to see things that others missed. And the difference between them and everyone else wasn't that they were born different. It was that they weren't afraid to be alone with their own thoughts. Right now, silence might feel uncomfortable. But what if that discomfort was actually the key to your freedom? What if, instead of avoiding it, you learned to use it? Imagine being able to sit in complete stillness and feel at peace. Imagine being able to think clearly, without the weight of unprocessed emotions pulling you in different directions. Imagine what it would be like to finally be in control of your mind, instead of letting it control you. That's exactly what you're about to learn. A method to not only face the silence, but to turn it into your greatest advantage. And once you master this, you'll never experience mental noise the same way again. Let's move forward. Most people think silence is something you have to chase. They believe it's only possible in a quiet room, on a meditation retreat, or in some isolated place far from the chaos of everyday life. But that's not true. Silence isn't about escaping the world. It's about learning to carry stillness within you no matter where you are, no matter what's happening around you. Once you understand how to do that, everything changes. You stop being affected by distractions. Your mind stops racing in 100 directions, and you move through life with a sense of clarity and control that most people will never experience. The first step is creating micro moments of silence throughout your day. You don't need hours of meditation or a special routine. You just need small shifts in how you interact with your own mind. Instead of checking your phone the second you wake up, take a moment to pause. Before jumping into conversations, take a breath. When you're walking somewhere, resist the urge to fill the silence with music or podcasts. These small moments may not seem like much, but they add up. They retrain your brain to be comfortable with stillness instead of constantly reaching for distractions. The second step is using silence as a reset button. Throughout the day, your mind picks up noise, conversations, news, social media, random thoughts. All of it adds up, creating mental clutter that makes it harder to think clearly. But instead of letting that noise build up, you can clear it out as you go. A simple way to do this is to take a few seconds to pause before transitioning from one task to another. Before opening your laptop, before making a phone call, before starting a conversation, just stop, take a deep breath, and let everything settle. This breaks the cycle of constant mental stimulation and gives your mind a chance to reset. The third step is practicing deep listening. Most people don't actually listen. They hear words, but their minds are busy forming responses, thinking about something else, or waiting for their turn to speak. But when you truly listen, when you give someone your full attention without interrupting, without thinking about what you're going to say next, something incredible happens. The conversation slows down. Your mind stops racing. You become fully present. And in that presence, silence naturally emerges. This isn't just about being a better listener. It's about training your mind to be still even in the middle of interactions, to remain calm even in the middle of noise. The fourth step is mastering the art of doing nothing. This is where most people struggle. The idea of sitting still without doing anything feels uncomfortable, almost like a waste of time. But that discomfort is exactly why it's so important. The more you train yourself to sit in silence, even for just a few minutes, the more your mind adapts. You start noticing things you would have missed. Thoughts become clearer, and the urge to constantly seek stimulation fades. Some of the greatest minds in history, philosophers, scientists, artists, understood this. They took long walks without distractions, spent time alone in silence, allowed their minds to wander freely. And in that space, their greatest insights and ideas emerged. The final step is embodying silence. This isn't about sitting in stillness for a few minutes and then going back to a chaotic mind. It's about carrying that stillness with you throughout the day. When a stressful situation happens, instead of reacting, you pause. When you feel overwhelmed, instead of drowning in thoughts, you return to silence. It becomes a habit, a way of being. And the more you practice it, the more effortless it becomes. This is how you integrate silence into your life. Not by forcing it, not by trying to escape to some quiet place, but by making it a natural part of everything you do. At first, it might feel unfamiliar. Your mind might resist. But over time, as you practice, as you create space for stillness, something shifts. The background noise starts to fade. Thoughts lose their grip on you. Clarity becomes your new normal. And once you reach that point, you'll wonder how you ever lived any other way. Let's move forward. Most people go through life thinking that silence is something external, something they have to find. They believe that if they could just escape to the right place, disconnect from the noise and shut everything out, then they'd finally experience peace. But that's not how it works. Silence isn't something you find. It's something you create. It's not about shutting out the world. It's about learning to control what happens inside your own mind. And once you do that, nothing can disturb you. Right now, your mind is like a crowded room. Thoughts, distractions, emotions, everything competing for your attention, pulling you in different directions. But what if you could step back and observe it all without being affected? What if instead of getting lost in the noise, you could create space between you and your thoughts? That space is the key. It's what gives you clarity. It's what allows you to think before reacting, to stay calm in chaos, to move through life with an unshakable sense of control. And the best part? You already have everything you need to do this. The ability to access deep silence, to quiet your mind at will, to detach from unnecessary thoughts, it's already inside you. You've just been conditioned to believe that mental noise is normal, that overthinking is part of life, that you have to live with stress, distractions, and constant stimulation. But you don't. You never did. The moment you stop feeding the noise, the moment you take back control, silence reveals itself. Now you know the truth. You don't have to fight your thoughts. You don't have to force your mind to be quiet. You just have to stop letting the noise control you. The more you practice, the easier it gets. The silence you've been looking for isn't somewhere out there. It's right here, waiting for you to notice it. If this video helped you shift your perspective, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know how you're going to start integrating inner silence into your life. And if you made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Now it's time to take action. Let's begin.